Okay, so now the first thing that we're gonna do, when you open NX, this is your interface. You go to where it says new, and we're gonna start here. You go where it says model, that tab right there, and where it says model, you can, I don't know, let's call it introduction to this one. So we'll call a bunch of different things. And just a note for those people that are using these computers, in here, if you want to create a folder, you can go, I believe, to this PC, Windows C, you go to users, and I happen to be Andy Eske, that's my curve. And I have a folder somewhere, I believe. Actually, I didn't create a folder in this computer, so I might create one in here. So I'll call it Siemens NX. And I'll say okay. That way you can save your parts. But just in case, I would recommend after each session to send yourself the part by email in case it gets lost. They may erase some of these files and whatnot. So once you're done with that, we can do okay. In here. And I will start the interface in just a moment. There we go. Oh, please, Zoom people, if you also have any questions, please unmute yourselves and ask. I hope to get to you. Otherwise, if I didn't get to any of your questions, please email me afterwards and we can chat. I would be more happy to meet with anybody of you guys outside of class times. But so once you go for that of creating a model, this is where you end up, which is the main Siemens environment. And if you've used other CAD softwares, you'll see that it's very similar to what you would find. So that's something that, to me, as I encounter other CAD softwares, I realize they're all pretty much the same. Just the color scheme changes a little bit. So this is where we are. So to start drawing stuff, and today I'm actually thinking that I want to CAD. I was thinking about CADing a cake, but I think a cake is too simple. So I want to CAD an iPhone phone, like an iPhone 6, which I've done in the past. I think that's actually quite doable. We'll give it a show. We'll try a number of different things as we go. And then we'll go into some of the other examples to give you the power of how very basic tools can get you to CAD quite complex stuff. So you go to where it says sketch up here. So sketch is how you start drawing. And the first question that it's prompting you right now is to choose a plane. And I like to choose always the top plane. And I'll say, okay. So now we are in the top plane environment. In your mouse, if you click on like the rolling button, you can hover around, you can move around, but it doesn't matter now because the main point in here is that blue cross that we see there, that's the origin. So everything that we'll draw from now onwards has to be referenced with respect to the origin. So I can start drawing lines, and I'll explain what that means in just a moment. But I can draw a line. I can draw another line like that. So you'll see, and then if I click escape, I'm exiting the command. So I just draw 4 lines. Just a couple of things to note out is that in here, it says the sketch is partially defined with 4 movable curves. So that is something that we're gonna be spending a lot of time on today, which is how to define sketches. Because you'll see that now, again, click on this line in there. I can move those points. I can just move it in space. In fact, right here, you see like that point is like constrained to that line. I'll explain what that means in a moment. But I need to start, I don't want this to move. I want this to be fixed, to have a fixed dimension and a fixed angle. So the way to do that is I can click here on letter D in your keyboard, and letter D in your keyboard is rapid dimensions. So there's different dimensions. Normally inferred works, but if you're looking for specific things that you want to dimension, you can look at them here from the menu. So you can say, all right, I want to define the horizontal distance of this line. So then I click in there and double click, I click escape, double click, and I can say, all right, 100. And I say escape. Another thing to point out, which is when you start your part in NX, automatically millimeters are the units that you'll be using in here. But I like to say that it doesn't matter the units that you use. In fact, I don't care whether we're in millimeters, inches, centimeters. We can always scale whatever we design to the correct units afterwards. So for now, let's assume these are absolute units, 100 in there, right? But you still see that this is, all of the lines are still partially defined. So another thing that I can do is click in D, and I can say that I want to define the angle, and I can choose that I want to define the angle between this line or the axis and this line itself, and I make that, I click escape, I made that like 45 degrees. And now you see how instead of having this line now is fully defined because now we only have 3 remaining right here. What I can do, for instance, is I can bring this line, I can click in this point, which is like one of the vertices, and I can make it coincident. I just dragged it in there. I can also click again on that point, if I'm not mistaken, wait until it becomes purple, and I believe I can drag it away. Let's see. Well, it doesn't work in here, but it doesn't matter. Like sometimes you can also break the mate in there. So here, these things are relations. And what that means is, for instance, that I can click in this one that's called perpendicular, and click in this line, and then on that line. And once I click OK, what that means is that these two lines will be perpendicular to one another. Very good. But it's still this one. I can still, as you can see, I can still define it. I can still move it, right? It's undefined on this direction. So then I can click again on letter D. Let's make it or point to point, another example. And now you see how only these two remain to be defined. So I can make that 200. Very good. So we're starting to define these lines slowly. It's difficult to tell from looking at the screen, but this line is like, so these ones are fully black. These ones in here, they are like orangish, brownish. Brownish is generally you have to have a very precise view to actually see the difference in colors. But whenever it's brownish like this, it means that it's undefined. Another thing that I can do is I can click in this line, I can drag that point all the way up there, and you see how now, then I go here with D, I can go again to like the angular one. We make that 30. Yeah, so now all that remains to be defined is this one. So I can now bring this line, drag it there. So that's a nice difference that I've noticed with other CAD softwares that I'll try to point out as we go. This feature where I can just drag points like that. And very good. Now we've created a field. I guess if you've taken topology in math, there's special terminologies to define like what all of these means. But now we have a field shape. And you can see that because it becomes shaded in there. And that's pretty good. So now we can click on finish. So we have our first sketch in here. If you want to edit your sketch, I can right click in here, go to edit, and I can change that number to be 300. And now it just changes automatically in there. Now I can change this to 150. And it just moves around given the way that we've defined this shape. And I'll click on finish. There's a number of things of why it's important to fully define stuff. But then always you can come back and you can define things. And you'll see the power of this later on. So now that we have this very primitive shape, let's give it some volume, right? So now it's in 2D, let's make it 3D. And the most intuitive way of doing that is with the extrude command in here. So it's telling you to select the curve. So I'm doing that. And I can hover around by clicking in the button of the mouse. And let's say I want to give this 300, or let's give it 30, for instance. I can also say that I want this to be negative 30. That way you see like there's a lot of freedom, right, in how you define the extrusion in particular. I'll say just 30 here for now. And voila, now you've created your first shape in here. It's quite interesting. So now let's create other sketches. And one of the reasons why I always like starting by designing a cake is because we can build layer by layer. For instance, I can go again to sketch. It's going to prompt us again to select a plane. But this shape as well has planes too. So I can, for instance, I can select this face in there and I'll say, okay. So for now, I can create new shapes. So I'm going to right click. And once you right click, it's telling you within Active Sketch, I'm going to say entire assembly. That way it allows me to select these different lines in here. So for instance, I can go to where it says circle, or actually let me go here to line. And I'm gonna, let's see if I can, I'm gonna go from here. I'm just gonna draw a line, and then I'm gonna drag that point all the way there. Very good. And now if you right click on this line, there's this little button in there that's called convert to reference. And this is super important because once you convert to reference, the line becomes fully dashed like that. Reference is exactly what it means. I'm using that line just to reference it for other purposes. And the purpose in my case is because now I want to draw a circle. I want that circle to be in the middle of that line, which happens to be also the middle of that shape. And now I click on D. I'll click here on inferred, escape, I'll give that 20. You see the sketch is fully defined. It's telling us down there. And now I can just click on finish and go here to extrude. Again, so I can either extrude outwards, or I can say that instead of inferred, I can subtract. And I'm gonna reverse the direction. I believe actually. There we go. I can say -100. So it's gonna make a hole throughout the shape. I can say okay. Very good. Now I don't. You see how you see these blue lines? These blue lines represent the sketches. So I can go here to the eyes and I can hide them. That way I don't see them. All you see is the shape. Now, say you're a designer, your boss comes and she tells you that the shape actually needs to have different dimensions. It's not a problem because you can go again back to sketch one, right click, go to where it says edit, and instead of 300, you can make that 400. Click on finish and see that everything updates automatically. And the same thing here on sketch number 3. I can edit this and I could have made that circle be equal to 10. I'll click on finish. Any questions so far? No. You feel free to log in one of these computers. Okay, I'll continue with the demo. I'll continue doing a couple more things and then I'll go around helping you guys with more specific things. But just a couple more things that you can do before you start playing around is that now, for instance, we can go back here to sketch. We can do a sketch here on this particular face right there. And let's explore other things. What are the different commands that you have available in here? Normally, I'll give you a taste of the ones that I would never use, actually. So whenever in a sketch mode, I would never use fillet and chamfer. Never use those. I know it's available to you, but one of the best CAD practices that I learned from people that do design, like literally design engineering, is to never use those two. But those two are actually available afterwards as features if you need them. And I'll explain what that means in a moment. So we'll only focus on these ones and perhaps on trim. And then there's a couple of these ones that we'll look in the next session on Thursday. Now, for now, let's look at these ones for here. So how would you perhaps, actually, no, I'll leave this one for afterwards. So let's make more shapes in here. I'm just gonna make like a funky looking shape right there. So it's obviously 5 movable chords is not defined. So let's define let's add constraints to all of these shapes. For instance, I can go to where it says make parallel and I can make this line. And actually I should right click in. Actually, does it let me? Yes. Let's see if I can make parallel with this one. Let's see if I can select that. Yeah, sometimes it doesn't let me select these lines. There's a way to do it. I'll just wait. Okay, so I'll just dimension these two lines in here. I want that distance to be, let's make that 20. Very good. Then I'll dimension the distance. I'll click on D. I'll go to point, and from this point to this point, I'll dimension that to be 30. Then I can go I'll do vertical distance between this point and that point in there. So that point is always the origin, right? So you can reference stuff respect to that. I'll make that, oh, I guess it doesn't let us define that. That's fine. Then I can define the angle in here. See if I can do that 100. Very good. I'm gonna go here to inferred. I'm just adding, there's a bunch of random numbers. Yeah, I couldn't define the horizontal distance, that's fine. So you see how slowly, I think you can see the contrast here better. That's black and that's brown. So you're fully defining like these lines. So it says that technically, yes, you have free movable curves, and that's true because I can click on this line in here. Yeah, so now this one, it's actually constrained to be parallel. That's why I cannot move it. I can just push it like that. I can also right click in this line and delete it. Or I could also right click in the line and make a reference line. So the reference line, as I was mentioning before, it's also an invisible line. That's why it's no longer shaded. But if I do Control Z, it becomes back like a fully shaded line. Then click on D again. And let's make this 80. Let's define this angle in here. Let's make that 150. Third. Very good. So now the sketch is all fully defined in there. And now I can go here to finish. And then we can actually either now, so now it remembers that we have the subtract feature in here. I can also do unite, but I want this to go towards 100. So 0 represents the plane from where we started. Yes, I think that's fine. So I'll say, okay. There's other, if you click in here which says value, there's other commands that you could potentially use. For instance, if I go back to subtract as an example, and instead of clicking value, I say up to until selected as an example, I could say, all right, go until this phase. That's something pretty cool because now if I say, okay, now I can go back to extrude number 2, right clicking it, edit, I can say 50. And now the whole automatically updates, right? Because it knows that it's always until selected. It's a nice, smart way of just making sure that you don't have to edit as much things. And again, I can go to the eye icon over there and just hide the sketch. That way, all you see is this shape in here. Then a couple of things that I was mentioning earlier, these are called features. That's why you have the extrude number, extrude in there, and the sketch that we use to create that extrude. I can right click in there and call this, I can rename it. So I can say, I can call that big hole. I'm not too creative with the names. And that one was the smaller hole. You see how when I click in this, it automatically selects. It recognizes what it is. So I can rename this, I'll call it. When we start making more complex parts throughout the next couple of sessions, you'll see that this right here, this area, which is called the feature tree, is going to get extremely packed. So it's a good practice to actually rename a couple of these. That way you know what exactly you are drawing in here. It can get very busy. And this I'll call it rename main extrude. Very good. So you see them all named in there. Very good. Now these are all the features as I was mentioning. So this looks kind of blocky for now. So you can make it a lot nicer by clicking on where it says chamfer. And I can select, for instance, that edge. And what that does is that essentially creates a nice angle cut along that edge. So I can say that I want that to be 10 millimeters. What does 10 millimeters mean? It's that this is a 45-degree chamfer, and 10 millimeters is the side of that angle. In contrast, you see how it's called symmetric. I can also make it asymmetric. So I can make this one 5 millimeters and that one 10, or I can make it offset an angle. There are different ways to define the chamfer. Normally I go for symmetric because I think it's the easiest way to do it, but kind of fun. And you can actually select multiple edges at once. And see how it makes like a nice, actually it doesn't, sometimes, as you can see, unable to create chamfer on this one, it makes sense, but that is too thin of a space. Now, if I were to reduce the chamfer to 1 millimeter in there, then it's able to create that chamfer in that particular angle. So you might be constrained. I can try, for instance, 2. Yeah, so 2 is within the limit of what it can do. I can make it 0.5. And I'll select also the edges on the bottom side of our shape. And click OK. And just like everything, I can always go back to the chamfer, right click, and go to where it says edit with rollback, and you can modify that number as you go. Very good. Another one that I like is called Edge Blend. Edge Blend in other softwares, it's called Fillet, and you're just making stuff look rounded. For instance, I can click in there, and it makes a rounded edge. So I can make that, for instance, 10. And just like with the chamfer, I can make it, there's different ways of defining this. Normally, I just go for circular, which is just like a normal one. And I'll make it in this edge as well. Oh, let me just cancel for a moment. I can choose that edge in there. I can make the interior of this rounded too. I click OK. So now this is starting to look a lot nicer than what we had before. You know, it's more with more decorations and whatnot. Then another one that I like to introduce, it's called draft. We're not going to use draft in this class, but if you are a mechanical engineer and you're going to take other manufacturing courses, you might design injection molds. And if you do design injection molds, maybe you know that every plastic part that you inject doesn't have straight walls. The walls are actually angled by 1 degree. And the reason for that is because it allows for injection out of the mold. And that 1 degree angle is called a draft. So you can actually design this. I might do a demo of how to make an injection mold. It's super easy. You just have to design the part, and then you make the negative out of a big mold. Anyway, so for draft, in here I can click in there. So specify vector, I can say I want to draft along this face. Stationary face, I want this one to be the stationary face. That way it's drafting like this. And then select face here. Oh yeah, so it's gonna complain if it's that big. So let's see what 1 degree does. Let me see if I believe it's drafting outwards. Let's see. Okay. But I think because of that little face in there, it's not gonna work. But we can try afterwards with a more. Let me go back here to edit sketch. Let me see if I can modify that angle in there. Let's make that 100. Oh, actually, I don't want that to be 100. Let's make that 30. No, maybe 30 was fine. I'm curious whether I can try draft again. In here, specify vector. Very there now, yes. So you see how now the original shape is the one that is bounded by the orange arrows, and the drafted version, it's all angled towards the interior. This is like a nice way of creating. In fact, let's click OK. Let's say 5 degrees. That way it's not. Well, I think it was more noticeable with 10. Let's see. Okay. So now this is the original face that we started with, and this one, it's all of the faces have been angled inwards by 10 degrees. It's just a cool thing to be aware of. So now you have something that is actually starting to look like a bracket of sorts, right? That you could potentially use for something. Maybe the first thing that I'll do before I stop and I go around answering any questions is that you can right click in here and assign a feature color. So I can go to specify color and we can make that purple as an example. So it's only gonna change the color of our first extrude. I can go back to our hole in here, maybe. Oh, so this one was the draft, what I changed the color. If I go to extrude, right there, assign feature color. Let's say that I want that to be brown. I'll click OK. See how it's changing colors. I can right click in here, assign feature color. Let's make that green. Then for the chamfer, assign. I also click more than one feature at the same time. I can do. I think it should allow me. There we go. You just have to click the control button for that. Specify color to make that red. Say OK. And now we just have like this whole. So it looks a lot nicer when you can color stuff, right? Just remember to always click on specify color, otherwise it's not gonna work. Say OK. And you can always go back and edit these colors as you go. And now you have a kind of a nice looking shape. Yeah, and then there's other stuff that we'll be looking as we go. But for now, I want to go around, making sure that you've learned this before we move into actually CADing something more useful with these things. The key, as I like to say, if you've seen the Karate Kid movies, is that as Miyagi would always say, it's repetition, right? It's like in the fourth movie, he puts the coat on and off all the time. It's exactly the same thing with CAD. A lot of repetition on and on. That's why with the dice, when we did each one of the different numbers, it was very repetitive and pretty boring. But by the end of that, actually become quite knowledgeable on how to CAD very primitive shapes. All right, so I'll stop here for now. I'll start going around. Actually, a great question that just came up is how do you pan? You just right click in here and you just go to pan. Okay. So I can just move around. Yeah, with SolidWorks, I think it's actually very similar. I can then right click, rotate, which is what we had. And then if you click again, you're just moving. I think, but normally to rotate, you just click on the roller button like this. Right. That's a great question. Thank you for that. Okay. So I'll cut something. Do you guys have any requests for something you'd like to cut? That is like something fun. And we'll go over again all of these different things. I don't want to cut. The iPhone seems actually too easy to cut. I want to do something perhaps a little bit more interesting. Enough time to think about like a cool object. Any watch face? Yeah, but the watch has some commands that I don't want to teach yet today. I was thinking like you know what? I'm gonna call a drum. Do you guys? Let me find a picture of a drum. I was thinking about the musically inspired moment, and I'll tell you exactly by what I mean for that. But I want to see specifically the one. We could cut this one actually. So let's start by cutting an object like this. Before I start, do you guys have any ideas of how we could make this object? I'll get you started. I think we might actually cut this pretty quickly. And if we do have time, we can cut something else. But so this one is actually simple, right? We'll probably start by drawing a circle, right? And we'll make the main body. Then at the very top of the circle, I'll probably draw two more circles to act as these rings that we see there. And then we'll draw a very simplified version of these just columns. And then actually today I'll show you how to make a circular pattern. So you just draw one of them and then you can make a pattern of like, I don't know, like 10 of these afterwards. Maybe I might even show you how to bring a picture and write like your name in there if you want. Or you can write text in here. I don't know, let's give it a shot. I think this will be interesting. So let's go, but here's the point of where we use a combination of pictures and imagination to cut this thing. So let's go back here to File. I'll try to go slow, that way you can follow as I go. Please feel free to stop me. If not, I promise I will go around again But it doesn't need to, whatever you cut doesn't need to be identical to what I do. Make it your own as well. But I go here to new model and I'll call this one drum. I'll say okay. Here. So I'll go uber slowly. So I'll start by clicking in sketch and I'll go to the top face. I'll say okay. And then again, as usual, I can zoom in and out by moving the roller. I can also rotate. And let's do a circle. Let's draw a circle that we're gonna draw it right from the origin. And we click on D. Again, I don't care about dimensions, but let's make that 100. Okay. And then let's finish this sketch. Let's extrude upwards by 100 too. I don't know, that might be too much. Maybe 60 would do the trick. Yeah, I think that's gonna work. Okay, good. So this is where I'm gonna go back and forth between the picture in here and our CAD model. I think that looks fine. Okay. Actually, we're gonna go back to extrude, right click in here. I'm gonna go to edit with rollback. And instead of making it 60, I'll make that 30 and I'll make that negative 30. And you'll see why I've done that in a second, because now this is symmetric along the plane that we chose at the very beginning. And that will be something super important. So that plane in there is the middle of the drum. So we'll probably only cut half of the drum and then we can mirror everything at the very end. So that will be something super simple to do. Let's do a sketch here in the top face. And let's click OK. And again, we can rotate again. And I will do, actually, there's this command that's called offset right here. I'll click in offset and you can click, right click in here to say work part only. And I can click on that line in there. So it's essentially creating an offset from another closed sketch that we had earlier. And I can say that I want that to be 3. And click OK. And then I'll click on finish. And I will extrude that upwards actually by 5 or maybe 7. Okay. Now we have that part of the drum being built. Let's go back to here. So you see, I also want to design that little gap that you see in there, and I think we'll actually be able to do it. And I have a little idea of how we can achieve that. But first things first, go here to extrude, here to sketch, back to the top face. I'll click OK. And I'm gonna go again to offset and I'll click that face. If you cannot select again, you have to right click and make sure that you are in the work part only as opposed to just active sketch. And I'm gonna select, I'm gonna do it inwards by 1 millimeter. I'll say, I can maybe, where's the number? Here. I can go back here, right clicking it, I'll say -2. I want that to be like the drum. And I will go here to finish and then extrude. Instead of infer, I'll say subtract, and I will subtract by -6. So you can see in there, it gives you a little projection how this would look like. So we're creating a pocket, as you can see. Very good, it's starting to look a little bit like that drum that we had earlier. So now we can go here to sketch, and now I'll do a sketch in that face that we see right here. I'll say, okay. And now we can go here. Actually, I'll show you this command. No, I'll just do a circle. It goes all the way like this. And I'll make this circle be, if I do it 100, maybe I want to be as close as possible to the wall, but still leaving a little gap, as you can see there. So 101 seems to work. I'll click on finish, and then I'll extrude upwards. No, by, let's say, yeah, 2 seams. I'll extrude upwards, so no, subtract, I say unite. Let me make sure that I'm actually extruding in the right direction. No. Okay, I think it's okay. Good. So you see how there's the little gap. So then I can go to blend, like here to edge blend, and I'll click on that little line, and I'll make that just one. So now it kind of looks a little more realistic. And let me just go here to the sketches and hide all of those. That way I don't see them. I can also hide the coordinates. That way it looks like that. And let's go back to our friend, the picture in here. Okay. And then when we start coloring all of this stuff, it will look even more realistic. You see, there's also a little gap in there, and there's also that little metal piece. So let's add that as well, right? So I'm gonna go to this side in here. I'll do a sketch on this face. I'll say okay. And now we'll go to offset. Let's offset by maybe 1 millimeter in that direction. I'll say okay. And maybe I might, let's see if I can. There we go. I'm just gonna make 2 concentric circles. I'll go here to finish. Now, it might actually complain. I might need to edit some of this stuff. And I'm gonna subtract. Let me see how would that look like. Yeah, sure. Another one. Yeah, so do you see how there's a gap? So maybe I'm gonna subtract just by negative 0.5. That way the gap is not created. I say, okay, very good. And now what we can do is go here to sketch. I'll do a sketch on this face right there. I'll click on OK. And I'll make yet 2 more circles. Actually, I can do first an offset from this one. And then another offset from this one. And now we can click on finish. And unite. Say 5. Hey, 5 is too much. Let's say 4. Right there. And now we have like that, I guess, bar piece that we had before. And now if we go back to the picture, open new tab. Let's take a look in here. No, I don't play the drums, sadly. I'm not very familiar with these, but I think with the picture we can do a decent job. So okay, the metal piece has to be much shorter. So we can go right here to extrude, edit, and let's make that 2 instead. And I'm gonna hide these things. So let's start giving this some color, right? That way we can start identifying some of these different parts. For instance, I'll right click here and assign feature color, specify color, and I'll make this white. And select feature, I'll also select that in there. Remember to click on specify color. Say okay. Then this has to be, okay, this one will make it brown. Actually, before I do, maybe I might add a couple of chamfers here, like small, all of the edges. That way looks nice. That. Let's say okay. And now let's right click in here, assign feature color. Let's make that this brownish color. Oh, but I'm gonna get rid of those chamfers as well. delete. Because it's like, I'll probably need to create them separately because all of the chamfers will have the same color. So I'll make those free first. And now, yes, we can assign the feature color. Find this brown again. And I'll go select these guys too. Oh, I forgot to, again, very good. Yeah, so it automatically changes to no color for some reason. But now we're good. So this is a little bit better. Now we can add the small chamfers there too. And we can make this light grayish. It changes back, so make sure to specify that again. I'll say, okay. And then the main drum was black. So let's change this to, okay, feature color. Let's make it this color. Okay, so it's starting to look a little bit like this. So now that we reached this point, I'll probably, I promise I will go around helping you guys. I'll just give you a general overview of how this works. It may be a little bit quicker than I thought, but once you get to this point, what you would do is go to mirror feature, and I want to mirror pretty much everything that I've done besides the drum. So I'll click on 4, actually I need to click control. That way all of these guys can be selected at the same time, and select plane, select that one that we originally had, and we go, okay. I've saved you saved yourself the work actually of coloring everything and of designing it twice. So now we have something that looks like a drum, or it could actually be a ring, it could be a wheel. It depends on your imagination what this could be. And now, before I go on to helping you guys, let's design the last part of this, which are these rings in here. So this is going to be perhaps the most complex part. But fear not, this is actually pretty easy to do. And so we'll give it a shot. And we'll make our lives easier in some ways. The first thing I'll do is I'll go here to sketch, and I'll do sketch on this face. And again, you don't have to overcomplicate your life, right? The point is that you get an approximation with all of these things. But what I'm going to try to do is I'll draw here a line that goes from here all the way there, almost up to the ring. Actually, yes, I might actually, yes, it doesn't matter. And I'll make that a construction line, a reference line. I click on letter D, and I'll make this actually be, let's see, 52. Yeah, so 52 is right there in the middle of this piece. So then I can go to where it says rectangle, and you can make a center rectangle. I can draw let me just look at this. Yeah, so there's a, it seems about symmetrical like that. So maybe let's make this dimension in here, clicking letter D. I'll make that 6. And you can make that one 5 as an example. Go back here. Yeah, so let's add here, let's finish. And let's extrude that upwards by, actually, I already did it, but let me right click. No, right click in here, edit, and extrude upwards by just 2. There we go. So now we have that very, very simple shape, nothing too complicated. But now we're gonna go back here to sketch, and we can do a sketch here in the, yeah, it doesn't matter where you do the sketch. It can be here in the top face for simplicity. And now what we can do is go here, let's do one rectangle. This method, the one that's called 2 points, it doesn't matter. And I can choose, Hold on, let me just make sure that yes, entire assembly. Yeah, sometimes it doesn't let me select the edge directly, so I'll just draw it like this. So I'll just drag this point all the way there, and I'll drag this point all the way here. So I'm gonna define this to be maybe 1 millimeter. Yeah, that seems to work. And I'll say finish. So then we go here to extrude, and we're gonna extrude downwards by -5. So then it goes like that. So this is the feature. We'll go over some of these things on later sessions, but this is a unite, which means even though they're intersecting, it becomes the same piece. And I click, actually, maybe I'll do -6. So it goes almost right, -5.5. There we go. I'll say, okay. There we go. Actually, let me hide these lines. That way it looks a little bit easier. And now I'll do the exact same thing on, maybe on this side, because I want to give it a little bit of that curvature too. I don't think it's going to be as complex as this one, but we'll make it look somewhat interesting. Especially we could potentially add those gears as well in there. So I'm gonna go here to extrude, no, to first to sketch. I go to this face, and we'll do the exact same thing. Another rectangle, and I click on this point and I drag it right there. It recognizes that that is the vertex. Do the same thing with this point. We drag it right there. I click on letter D. I make that one as well. Finish. And then we extrude that one on the, let's say, 6. Maybe more. Let's do 8. Okay. Good. I'm thinking now we're gonna get a little bit creative. We're gonna go here to sketch, and we'll do a sketch here on this face. Now I'm just gonna draw a triangle. Like this. And I'll make that maybe 5. Yeah, very good. Oh, okay. I'll define this side as well. Maybe this one I'll make it 2. And I'll finish. And let's do an extrude of -6 along that direction. You see, you can start adding a lot of fun details. We want just with all of the tools that we learned today, just different shapes. And just now, the next thing I will do is a little sketch over here. I'll say okay, and I'll define a line to go from here, and then I'll make it go there. Right click and make it construction. That way, I can now draw a circle that's going to be on the middle of that line, and I can make this circle be 2. Just like that. So we're gonna make a simplified design for this thing. And then let's go here to an extrusion. Let's extrude by 3. Maybe actually, we do a little bit more. Let's do 5. I'll say okay. So now we're starting to build that bar. And I can make a little knob in there. That's gonna be super simple to do. I go here to, again, sketch. Face, I'll say okay. I'll click on circle. I'll just do another circle that is a little bit bigger. Maybe this one I'll make it 5. And I will finish, extrude this by maybe 2. Just like that. And then I'll just continue that bar. So I'll go here to sketch in that face. letter D, that too, okay. And just like that, I'll extrude, and instead I'll use until selected. And for until selected, I can select again that plane, which is the middle plane. So we'll go right until the middle. That way we can mirror all of this stuff afterwards. So you might be wondering, well, we can actually add a little bit more details to this piece. I go here to chamfer. I can chamfer those little edges in there. Like this, that way it looks nice. In fact, I could, I'll chamfer all of it, honestly. I'll say, okay. Let me chamfer these sides as well. I'll just chamfer these two. Then for these guys, I'll actually make it a little bit more pronounced, maybe like one. It looks like a more professional bracket in there, and the same thing up there. Very good. You see, like, it was looking kind of boring before, but you just had these angle cuts, and it looks just a lot nicer that way. And the same thing with our knob in there. So you might be wondering, I'm going to introduce a command that I wanted to bring later, but it's a circular pattern, so it's very simple to do. I can go here to sketch, to that face. I'll say okay, right there, and I can add a construction line that goes like this. I'll right click and make it construction. I'll make it go all the way there to the circle. I'll draw another one. So it's gonna go like that. I'll make it go just like that, right click. I can still move the line, so I'll make this angle in here be, oh, sorry. The angle, I'll make that be maybe like, let's say 45 degrees. No, that's too much. Let's do 30. And now what I'll do is I'll go here to arch. I'll click in this point. I'll get in this point. And I will do a little arch like that. And maybe another one that will be exactly that. So what we're gonna do now is click on finish and extrude, but subtract, I believe it was -2. So here's where the magic happens. First, let me get rid of these sketches. I'm just gonna hide them, that way they don't interfere. I can go here to where it says pattern, select feature, it is that cut. Then go here to circular, specify vector, just select in there, where it says count and span, just do 360, and I want 6 of these. Let's see how would this look like. There you go. You have a nice little knob that you just built. So before I do anything, let me just color some of this stuff. So assign feature color. Yeah, I wanted this to be black, that's fine. Assign feature, okay. Oh, I should have selected also the pattern itself. Very good. Yeah, well, that will be great. Maybe the bar, we can make it a different color. We're almost there, actually. This is pretty much it. Okay. And now let's do a mirror of all of that stuff. So here, mirror feature. So select features. Where I don't even remember where. This is why renaming stuff is not a bad practice. I believe it is here. So I'm gonna rename that. Where's our friend rename? There. Gotta go bracket. That way I know when different sets of designs begin. Mirror feature. I'll click. You have to hold the control key and select everything that we've done. Oh, no, that one. There we go. And now select plane. And we had still that one right there. I say, okay. What did I'm not sure whether it worked or not. Oh, I selected the wrong plane. That is not ideal. There we go. Oh, there we go. So now we have our bracket right there. Very good. So we're almost there. Maybe one thing that I might do is I'll use this unite command. And I want to unite maybe the bracket and select bodies. Let's see if I can. Actually, no, it doesn't matter. Forget about what I said. I'll just do a circular pattern now of everything that we just have. Specify vector, I'll say there, and I want 12 of these. Okay. Oh, I don't think. Maybe, you know what I'm gonna do? In mirror feature, I'm gonna get rid of that, and I'm gonna mirror now all of these guys. So sometimes when it doesn't work, you just need to do it the next time. Now we can go here to mirror feature, and select feature. Again, I'll do bracket, all of these guys. Trigger pattern. There we go. Select plane. That one. I hope it works. Otherwise, we just designed half a drum. And I would be happy with that. I do know something that could do the trick if this doesn't work, but otherwise, here. So there you go. Like, it took us maybe 20 minutes to design the drum. Never did it before, and this is the point of the class. You just look at a picture and you give it a shot. But you'll probably have to bear patience with me because a lot of this stuff is experimental. Like I don't have the answers to everything. So we'll figure it out as we go. All right, let's leave this thing. And I'll spend the rest of today just walking around and helping you guys. Any general questions? We got the drum in here. Very interesting. And I'll make this piece, by the way, I'm gonna upload all of this stuff to the website so you can download this and play around with this drum.